Good Tuesday morning or Thursday morning, excuse me. Good Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for June the 29th. Today, we're reading together in Judges chapter 6, which is the opening section of the Gideon story that is found within the book of the Judges. Let's see here. This will mean that, according to the stories at least, we are finishing up the first half of the book of the Judges, at least the judges themselves that are listed within this particular text. Remember, we have a pretty cool type of structure that is found here within the book of the Judges. I want to pull it up real fast, actually, share that with you. Let's see here. Yeah, here's this pretty cool diagram got from Kenneth Way's work on Judges and Ruth, where you have this cool structure in Judges where you have the prologue and then going through the rest counterclockwise here. And then you have these various sections of Judges. You see it corresponding with other sections within Judges. So the prologue corresponds here with this first part of Gideon going through chapter 7, and then the epilogue at the end of Judges corresponds well with the last chapter in Gideon. So just again, that's a cool visual aid to use here to kind of see what's going on. And then, of course, there's the Judges downward spiral or cycle, the dumpster fire that is Judges. We see how it just continues to grow worse and worse. And that's really what we're going to even see within Gideon's story specifically. We're going to see a man who really had the opportunity to achieve a lot of really good things for God, but unfortunately ends up getting himself in trouble. And again, that's just a reminder to us that many of the individuals that we find here within the Judges story, they're just not good guys at the end of the day. They're not good characters. They have many really, really severe flaws that we need to make sure we need to make sure that we ourselves are avoiding in our lives, living in faith before God. So let's read here what we see in Judges chapter 6 concerning Gideon, the first chapter of his saga. Judges chapter 6 and verse number 1, the Israelites did what was evil in the sight of Yahweh. So Yahweh handed them over to Midian 7 years, and they oppressed Israel. Because of Midian, the Israelites made hiding places for themselves in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and the Amalekites and the people of the east came and attacked them. They encamped against them and destroyed the produce of the land, even as far as Gaza. They left nothing for Israel to eat, as well as no sheep, ox, or donkey, for the Midianites came with their cattle and their tents, like a great swarm of locusts. They and their camels were without number, and they entered the land to lay waste to it. So Israel became poverty-stricken because of Midian, and the Israelites cried out to Yahweh. When the Israelites cried out to him because of Midian, Yahweh sent a prophet to them. He said to them, "This is what Yahweh, God of Israel, says. I brought you out of Egypt and out of the place of slavery. I rescued you from the power of Egypt and the power of all who oppressed you. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am Yahweh your God. Do not fear the gods of the Amorites whose land you live in, but you did not obey me." So that's the cause of all their issues. Verse 11, the angel of Yahweh came and sat under the oak that was in Ophrah, which belonged to Joash the Abiezrite. His son Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress in order to hide from the Midianites. Then the angel of Yahweh appeared to him and said, "Yahweh is with you, valiant warrior." Pretty ironic, I must say. Gideon said to him, "Please, my lord, if Yahweh is with us, why has all this happened? And where are all his warriors that our ancestors told us about?" They said, "Hasn't Yahweh brought us out of Egypt? But now Yahweh has abandoned us and handed us over to Midian." Yahweh turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and deliver Israel from the grasp of Midian. I am sending you." But Gideon said to him, "Please, Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Look, my family is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my father's family. But I will be with you," Yahweh said to him. "You will strike Midian down as if it were one man." Then he said to him, "If I have found favor with you, give me a sign that you are speaking with me. Please do not leave this place until I return to you. Let me bring my gift and set it before you." And he said, "I will stay until you return." So Gideon went and prepared a young goat and unleavened bread from a half bushel of flour. He placed the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot. He brought them and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said to him, take the meat with the unleavened bread and put it on this stone and pour the broth on it. So he did that. The angel of Yahweh extended the tip of his staff that was in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. Fire came up from the rock and consumed the meat and the unleavened bread. Then the angel of Yahweh vanished from his sight. Then Gideon realized that he was the angel of Yahweh, and he said, oh no, Lord Yahweh, I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face. But Yahweh said to him, peace to you. Don't be afraid, for you will not die. So Gideon built an altar to Yahweh there and called it Yahweh Shalom, meaning Yahweh is peace. It is still in Ophrah of the Abiezrites today. On that day, verse 25, on that very night, Yahweh said to him, take your father's young bull and a second bull 7 years old, then tear down the altar of Baal that belongs to your father and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Build a well-constructed altar to Yahweh your God on top of this mound. Take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering with the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down. So Gideon took 10 of his male servants and did as Yahweh had told him. But because he was too afraid of his father's family and the men of the city to do it in the daytime, he did it at night. When the men of the city got up in the morning, they found Baal's altar torn down and the Asherah pole beside it cut down, and the second bull offered up on the altar that had been built. And they said to each other, who did this? And after they had done a thorough investigation, or after they had made a thorough investigation, they said, Gideon, son of Joash, did it. Then the men in the city said to Joash, bring out your son. He must die because he tore down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. But Joash said to all who stood against him, would you plead Baal's case for him? Would you save him? Whoever pleads his case will be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead his own case because someone tore down his altar. That day, Gideon was called Jerubbaal, because Joash said, let Baal contend with him, because he tore down his altar. All the Midianites, Amalekites, and people of the east gathered together, crossed over the Jordan, and camped in the Jezreel Valley. The spirit of Yahweh enveloped Gideon, and he blew the ram's horn, and the Abiezrites rallied behind him. He sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who rallied behind him. He also sent messengers throughout Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, who also came to meet him. Then Gideon said to God, if you will deliver Israel by me, as you said, I will put a wool fleece here on the threshing floor. If dew is only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, I know that you will deliver Israel by me, as you said. And that is what happened. When he got up early in the morning, he squeezed the fleece and wrung dew out of it, filling a bowl with water. Gideon then said to God, don't be angry with me. Let me speak one more time. Please allow me to make one more test with the fleece. Let it remain dry, and the dew be all over the ground. That night, God did as Gideon requested. Only the fleece was dry, and dew was all over the ground. And that is Judges chapter 6, the first chapter concerning Gideon. Again, I apologize about the camera being blurry, out of focus. Again, just bear with me. Hopefully, I'll be able to get something figured out about that soon. But here concerning this text, actually, you know what? I'm just going ahead and put the text up on the screen. That way, you're having that to look at and not having the biggest portion of the screen be out of focus. At least this is hopefully showing up well. Again, we begin with this next cycle of a judge, of a warlord, a warrior within Israel, and with all the rest of them, it is precipitated by the fact the Israelites did what was evil in Yahweh's sight, and so he handed them over to Midian for 7 years. The bulk of this text is going to take place in the tribe of Issachar, which I will show real fast. Show the map that has this on there. Let's see here. We're going to scroll up here to about chapter 2. Let's see right here. All right. So let me pull this over here and make it bigger. We'll share this portion of the screen with you. Actually, double click this. All right. So new share. It's right there. Let's make sure that's what's, yep, there we go. Okay. All right. So this particular story here within Judges takes place in Ophrah, which is right here in the land of Issachar. Now, what we're going to see mentioned later on is that Manasseh is going to get involved. We're also going to see Zebulun and Asher and Naphtali get involved as well. So this particular story of this judge takes place in the northern portion of Israel. Remember, much of these, many of these stories, I think almost all these stories really are regionally centralized. That they're not spreading across the entire land of Canaan. Not all the tribes are usually involved. It's just a specific number of them. Again, normally they're involved because they're geographically located in a central area. That happens to be the case here, that this is taking place in Issachar. Now, the Midianites are the ones who are the oppressors at this point. And what we have within here is the food, the livestock, everything is just being ransacked by the people. They're described, the Midianites with their camels and their tents, they're described as even a great swarm of locusts, which is echoes of the Egyptian Exodus. Really, this is a reversal now against Israel because of their sin. They were poverty stricken because of Midian. And again, we see reversal of the Exodus, but really we can get back and see this from the very beginning of the book of the Exodus, where the people of God, the Israelites, the Jews, the Hebrews that are there in Egypt, they're oppressed and they cry out to Yahweh. We see something similar here in this regard. And interestingly enough, we see the next thing that is mentioned is the fact that a prophet is being sent by God to speak to the people, similar to Moses. But Moses actually ended up talking about the prophets later on, about how God is going to raise up a prophet for them. What's the point of the prophets? Well, the point of the prophet is to give God's perception of reality, to speak the words of God. And what he speaks to them is, I did all these things for you, and I told you to not fear their gods, but you didn't obey me. You did not obey me. You did what was evil in my sight. And so now you are suffering at the hands of these pagans that really God had orchestrated to come and to serve as a punishment for their evil and rebellion. Because of their covenant disloyalty, they were experiencing now the covenant curses. So we have another appearance after always seeing the angel of Yahweh in chapter 2 and verses 1 through 5. We see him appearing once again, and he comes, he sits under the oak that was in Ophrah. Again, we see on the screen here, this is the area in which this particular story of the judges is taking place. And here the main character is going to be a man named Gideon, who is threshing wheat, the text tells us, but he's doing so in the winepress because he is hiding from the Midianites. So you introduce this man immediately, and we see him not exactly being a person full of courage, which makes it even more ironic that the angel says that Yahweh is with you, valiant warrior. Peak irony. That is not what this man is at all, even from the very little that we've seen, in the fact that he's hiding from the Midianites. And we're going to see as we continue throughout this text that he's just he's a coward. Gideon is a coward. He's going to show that on many occasions within this chapter alone. He speaks to the angel, Gideon does, and says, hey, what happened to Yahweh being with us? You know, we've heard stories about the Exodus, we've heard stories about the plagues and everything, but now it seems as if he has abandoned us and he's handed us over to the Midianites, which is exactly what he's done. And he's done that because of the rebellion of the people. They were not loyal to the covenant. Therefore, they are being punished for that. They are receiving and experiencing the covenant curses. But again, I want to note verse 14 that says, Yahweh turned to him. I thought this was the angel of Yahweh. Well, yes, the angel of Yahweh is Yahweh. This is a manifestation of God here in this story, as we see back in chapter 2 as well. So Yahweh says to him, you're going to go, I'm going to strengthen you, and you're going to deliver Israel from the grasp of Midian. I'm going to send you. He gives some Moses-like excuses. Oh, I'm the smallest from Manasseh. My family's the weakest. I'm the youngest. You know, I just never going to work. But here's what should have been a very confident building statement from Yahweh, but I will be with you, and you will strike down Midian as if it were one man. But still, Gideon's not convinced. He says, well, you know, if I've really found favor with you, then show me a sign. There's no confidence at all in this man, even though this individual is speaking on behalf of Yahweh and saying, God is with you, you must receive a sign. He says, just don't leave here I'm bringing back a gift. I'm going to set it before you. And he ends up bringing back a young goat, unleavened bread, meat that's in this basket, and broth in the pot. And the angel tells him, well, put it on this stone here. And he puts it on the stone there. He touches it with his staff, and poof, it bursts into flames. It consumes the meat, consumes everything. And then the angel of Yahweh himself, disappears from Gideon's sight. And Gideon realizes that this was the angel of Yahweh. And he says, oh no, Lord Yahweh, I have seen the angel of Yahweh face to face. His mind is, I've seen God and I'm going to die, which is rooted in Exodus 33 and verse 20. But Yahweh then speaks to him and again tries his best to reassure Gideon. He tries to pump confidence into this man. Peace to you. Don't be afraid, for you will not die. To Gideon's credit, he built an altar, names it Yahweh Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. He recognizes the blessing that he's received here in this place. And yet Yahweh's going to be right back on him. That very night, the text says, go take your father's young bull and the second bull is 7 years old and tear down the altar of Baal that belongs to your father and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Basically, you're going to start this mission by cleaning your own backyard out. You're going to fix everything within your father's house to begin with. So he tells him, go do this. You're going to basically desecrate the pagan worship center and rebuild an altar in my name. So that's what he does. But he does so with 10 male servants, which again, the text doesn't say he could not do that, although he wasn't told to take servants himself. That's a possible insight that he needed other people to come with him. But really what seals the deal about him still being a coward is the fact that he does this at night. He was too afraid of his father's family and the men of the city to do it in the daytime. He did it at nighttime because of fear. But he does it still. To his credit, he does what Yahweh says. In the morning, whenever everybody gets up and they see that Baal's altar has been desecrated, they try to figure out who did this. They do some investigation and realize it was Gideon. So they go to Joash and they say, bring out your son. He must die because he tore down Baal's altar and cut the Asherah pole beside it. Let's remember, by the way, that these are Israelites who are right now steeped in paganism. It is even Gideon's father himself who seems to be the one supporting this. And yet, his own son is the one who comes and, again, desecrates the paganism. But what's Gideon doing? He seems to be hiding now. He's not standing up and saying, yes, I did this. And he's not showing confidence on what the angel of Yahweh has said to him, but he's hiding. His own dad has to speak up for him. And his dad says, listen, are you really going to have to plead on behalf of Baal? Can he not take up for himself? If he is a god, let him plead his own case that someone tore down his altar. But that day, Gideon takes a new name. His new name is Jerubbaal, which means let Baal contend with him. So this is really a name that Gideon should have really adopted and lived by. But we don't see him embrace this strong mindset of confidence in Yahweh. Even though we see in verses 33 through 35 that the Spirit of Yahweh enveloped him, came on him like a cloak, and he became in this moment a strong, mighty warrior, rallying troops from Manasseh and from Asher, from Zebulun and Naphtali to fight against the Midianites and the Amalekites and the Kedemites. He's going to fight against them in the Jezreel Valley. He's going to do that. But before that, Gideon again feels like he has to be reassured. You know, if you will deliver Israel by my hand, as you said, then I'm going to give you another test. He puts before Yahweh, we'll put this fleece on the ground, this wool fleece, let it be wet, let everything else around it be dry. He does that, certainly happens, but he's still not convinced. He's still a coward. He says, fine, let's do one more. This time I want the ground to be wet, but for the fleece to be dry. And it happens as well. So time and time again throughout this story, we are going to see Yahweh continually putting what should have been confidence boosters in the way of Gideon. With all these things that the angel of Yahweh and Yahweh has said to Gideon, he should be full of confidence knowing that I am blessed to have been selected by Yahweh to be his servant and to be the one who's going to deliver the people from the Midianites. But time and time again, he shows himself to be a coward. He shows himself to be lacking in confidence. So what we're going to see in tomorrow's read is God is going to continue to try to instill confidence within Gideon. He's going to continue to show him his power. He's going to continue to show him that he needs to have confidence in Yahweh and that Yahweh will deliver him, that Yahweh will deliver his people. So I hope you'll tune in tomorrow to read that along with me from Judges chapter 7. If you have any questions here about this text in the book of Judges, chapter 6, where we've been reading today, any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those in the comment section below. I hope that our read through the Judges has not been a total downer for you. I hope that maybe some of your childhood heroes are not just being completely crushed. Although I think the way we should read Judges is probably in a more negative way than we might want to, because it really is an undoing of all the things that happened in Joshua. It's really defined by the fact that the people did not recognize God, did not honor God, and eventually the whole text is going to be summarized by them being a people who did what was right in their own eyes. And how sad that is. Gideon is a real case study here in a man who just did not have confidence in Yahweh, and then eventually he's going to have too much confidence in himself, and that's going to get him in trouble as well. So we'll be continue looking at that over the next couple of days as we read together in Judges chapter 6, 7, and 8, looking at the story of Gideon. Again, any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comment section below, and hope we'll see you tomorrow as we continue our read throughout the Judges. Take care, and God bless.